The first thing I'd probably like to say, and this wasn't even in my sort of script, but from what we've had today, 2030, the targets that we're looking for, if we're going to get to 2030 targets, and people have talked about doing more faster, we are going to have to challenge what we do. We are going to have to remove blockages. We are going to have to recognize those blockages, and we're going to have to work together to do them. So as a result of that, there will be at times conflicts, as there are in all organizations, even delivering projects. But one of the things that gives me confidence that we will get there here is that this room is full of pioneers in this industry who 10, 15 years ago started out, and to get to 40% or nearly 40% renewables by 2020, and we all know in here we're going to miss the targets in 2020, but we're going to get pretty close to them. It's that drive, that belief that's key to delivering this. And I suppose you know, my kind of theme that I wanted to really start off with is that I recently went away on holiday, and somebody gave me, in fact it was my wife, gave it to me, Mary Robinson's book called Climate Justice. And she makes it clear that climate change is already having severe effects, not only in the storms that we see here, but in other parts of the world. It's much more fundamental. And it's typically indigenous peoples and people on the margins who are suffering from it. It's an existential issue. That's why the young people are mobilizing. That's why they are getting interested and excited about this, because they realize that this is not just an issue of, and there's lots of reasons why renewable energy is good. It takes us away from dependence on fossil fuels. It takes us away from import. It puts energy in our own control. But it's also an issue of ultimately climate justice, with a world that's got, I think it's 7 billion people now, heading for 9 billion. They all need energy and so on. And we're seeing countries like India, you know, doing large amounts of solar and beginning to allow local communities to actually develop their own power sources. So there's a real imperative to deliver climate change, renewable energy. But one thing we have to do is we also have to link it to the grassroots. We have to link it to individuals. We cannot simply go, well, there's a lot of bunch of government policies, and the UN thinks this is good, and our government thinks this is good. But if the man on the street doesn't connect to them, and the man and the woman in the street, then we are going to struggle. We've already seen issues with communities bringing projects in. But if people, and we've seen programs like Blue Planet 2 making big changes in the way people think. So we need to connect what we do, and in terms of the policy space, down to the people in the street, and we need to give them scope to do their bit for climate change, whether that's through facilitating microgeneration in their home, gaining control of their energy usage, solving waste disposal problems through anaerobic digestion, and providing electricity or biogas, as Aoife had mentioned. These are all ways of kind of linking it back to the individual, and I think that's really what I want to kind of focus on. So very briefly, Verdian, we are a modern Irish utility. We operate under the Energia and Power NI banners, and we have a diversified business with interest in renewable and thermal generation and energy-related and energy efficiency, energy retail. We are owned by I2 Capital, $6 billion global fund based in the US, but investing all over the world. So what are our top 3 priorities? So the first one is we would see as Energia, as a modern utility, the retail opportunity, and this is empowering consumers to engage in the energy market through digitization of energy solutions. So in that space, and we've already heard it from other members of the panel, customer solutions and enablers for prosumers, which is a word that was first brought up at one IWA conference a few years ago. But prosumer is basically the individual being able to participate in energy markets, being able to control their energy in their homes, and have batteries and feedback to the grid. So electric vehicles, distributed generation batteries. We are, as a company, trialing batteries in homes, and I'm sure all the other supply companies are doing something similar. Electrification of heat, we've talked about that. These needs to happen. Greater energy efficiency. I was talking to in the home. I was talking to somebody at a recent IWA event, and they told me the first thing they do in the morning is they reach for their smart app. We have a smart app called Netatmo. And the first thing they do when they get out of bed is they go and, in fact, they don't even get out of bed. They switch on their radiators. They switch off their security system. They love it. So people want to engage, and they also see that being efficient is smart. It saves them money, but it also gives them control, and they can feel, well, I'm not wasting my energy. You know, I'm actually managing it more efficiently, and I'm doing my bit for climate change. Other things, the whole sort of smart meter rollout, that's all designed to give more control to the consumer at the end of the day. Again, we hear the term smart meter in terms of what does that actually mean for individuals. There's a bit of a gap, and we need to bring it down so that people can engage with it. And data analytics has been mentioned, and again, smart meters facilitates that. So this brings benefits to the customers of actively participating in achieving climate change targets, feeling they're doing their bit. Plus, it's good for them, reduce energy costs, participate in upside benefit, energy arbitrage, community involvement, and optimizing renewable generation. These are all key elements for the customer. So the second thing is, Energia recently won the 2019 Green Energy Provider Awards, and renewables is core to our strategy. So as that, we are in common with many others, positioning ourselves with projects for onshore wind, offshore wind, solar, peaking generation storage. The support for these projects and we're all obviously looking to RES to help deliver that. But in order to do that, there needs to be clear policy. There needs to be ambition. And in the climate justice theme of things, that needs to be big ambition. But we've also got to recognize if we're going to deliver that, we have to remove the blockages. Another thing that we're doing is a Huntstown Bioenergy plant. We've moved as a company to move into that waste to energy space. We're solving part of Dublin's waste problem, taking 100,000 tonnes per annum and turning that into biogas. And we look forward to seeing gas networks and gas injection grid rolling out as they've done in GB, and being a solution to our waste, and then allowing the individual to say, well, my bin is going to actually produce biogas, and my waste is effectively being recycled. We're also involved with a hydrogen innovation project, which is being launched today in Belfast, the GenCom project, and that's hydrogen for buses and transport. We've talked about electrification, but there are some things like buses where they need high torque. You need hydrogen fuel cells. Electrification isn't going to be the solution for buses. And also, if you look at trains, electrification of lines, the old style, that's going to be costly. So it's about making investments that are relevant to consumers and not just carbon-efficient assets for investors. And I think that's what we have to avoid is just being investment for big business. And I suppose my third area really is the challenge of other routes to market. So we've talked about the support mechanism here. As you can hear from my accent, I'm from Northern Ireland. There's no route to market in Northern Ireland, and not likely to be anytime soon. Corporate PPAs need to be developed, and we as a company are working in this space to find solutions. But to put it in context, the corporate PPA market, and we heard this from Patrick, if you look at the biggest year yet in the US for the corporate PPA market, which is, I think, last year, and you take that same percentage to Ireland as a whole, you get 100 megawatts, maybe one project per year in corporate PPA land. So we have a long way to go there to get routes to market, and that's another challenge. So I think maybe just to sort of finish with in terms of kind of working together, and one example of that would be the whole area of grid, where we have AirGrid, we have ESB. If you go into contestable build, they do not join up. I was talking to somebody this morning who's project's been 9 months at the design stage trying to agree a spec. In our own experience, not only do we have a long period of trying to get that together, we've then had 2 or 3 years without getting any without getting any funds, because EirGrid and the ESB have to agree, and that's a blockage that needs to be resolved, because if we're going to do more with grid connections, we need to empower people to do it. But if we're going to do it, we need to have rules that we can all follow and will be efficient. So I love that one as one for debate.